All right, let's dive right into this explainer and decode what the source material calls the exact chronological playbook for messaging women. If you've ever felt like your texts are just disappearing into the void, or you somehow always end up as the buddy instead of a romantic interest, you're going to want to hear this. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating strict methodology designed to change that dynamic. We're going to break down the psychology of modern digital communication step by step, exactly as this framework lays it out.
We'll be following the natural timeline of an interaction, dismantling the common mistakes that, according to the source, turn men into just another fan. The playbook breaks this down into 6 key areas: the free attention trap, the date-first rule, the danger of emojis and clowning, the date-setting test, maintaining the mystery, and finally, the power of voice notes. Let's get into it.
Kicking things off with Section 1, the free attention trap, and how to avoid the friend zone. The source argues that the absolute biggest mistake actually happens right at the very beginning of the interaction, the second you make contact. A really central concept here is this idea of fan 133. According to the playbook, the exact moment you accept just a social media handle, like an Instagram username, instead of a phone number, you've essentially volunteered to be placed in the friend zone. Why? Because you become a provider of free attention. In the modern dating landscape, the argument goes that social media is often used just to collect validation, so when you become just another follower, liking and commenting on pictures without any real-world connection, you are literally just fan number 133. You're giving away your attention for absolutely nothing in return. And that leads us straight into Section 2, the date-first rule and establishing leadership. So, how do we avoid becoming fan 133? Well, the playbook implements a very strict rule before numbers are even exchanged.
The crucial takeaway here is to always secure the date before asking for a personal number. The source is super clear on this. A high-value man doesn't waste time. During that very first interaction, your only goal is to set a specific time to meet up. And it draws a hard line here. If there's hesitation, or she needs to think about it, or gives a vague excuse about being incredibly busy, the advice is to simply walk away without looking back. The framework argues that if someone is just looking for free attention without offering you their time, you have to respect your own time enough to just leave.
Moving on to Section 3, the danger of emojis and clowning. This part really gets into the actual messaging habits that the source recommends once you do successfully have the number.
The source draws a pretty sharp contrast here between a simple, mature text and one that's just totally flooded with emojis. Flooding a message with digital fireworks signals that you're overcompensating. According to the text, leaning heavily on emojis makes a person look like a comedian, or worse, a clown desperate to impress. It signals immaturity and subtly implies that you have no other options. The advice is simple. You don't need to overcompensate. Your words should be confident enough to stand entirely on their own. The playbook actually uses a pretty vivid analogy to capture the mistake of over-texting immediately after a date. It says, women are like cats. The more you smother them, the more they run away. Give them space, and they return. Texting the absolute second a date ends to ask if she got home or what she's eating is viewed here as smothering. When you show all your cards and make it totally obvious that you're a guaranteed backup plan, the source claims she will pull away. It warns that being too predictable and overly available actually invites tests and canceled plans down the road. Now, when it's time to actually set up that meetup, we hit Section 4, the date-setting test and maintaining the masculine frame. You've got to be prepared for what the source describes as a hidden test. By offering 2 specific days, let's say Monday or Wednesday, the strategy suggests you're showing decisive leadership. But it also acts as a kind of barometer to analyze her response. Choosing the earlier day, Monday, indicates high interest. Choosing Wednesday might signal medium or low interest. But here is where the real test comes in. What if both are rejected and Friday is offered instead? The source is absolutely adamant here. If the frame is broken by offering a totally different day, the strategy dictates that you must pull back. You decline, mention you'll just text next week, and take back control. The entire goal is to establish that you operate on your own busy schedule, not just whenever she's free. Okay, so once the date is successfully set, a brand new trap emerges in Section 5, maintaining the mystery and the danger of over-texting. Let's say a date is set on Thursday for the following Monday. The source insists you have to resist the urge to send those generic good morning texts during the days in between. In fact, it advocates for absolute silence on Friday and Saturday to preserve the mystery. Killing that mystery, the playbook says, turns a potentially romantic, highly anticipated dynamic into a boring pen-pal relationship.
It advises sending only a single, simple confirmation text on Sunday evening to verify the Monday date, saving all the actual conversation for when you're finally face-to-face.
As the interaction progresses, there's a secret weapon you can use to stand out, which is outlined in Section 6, the power of voice notes and upgrading communication.
The advice here is super practical. Transition your conversations from standard text messages over to voice notes. Getting someone used to the sound of your voice builds a highly personal connection. It adds tone, emotion, and a sense of presence that plain text simply lacks. This moves you far, far away from the status of a random text-on-a-screen fan. The source argues it makes your digital presence feel incredibly real and tangible.
Finally, the playbook addresses the very real, very frustrating reality of delayed replies. If hours go by without a response and you suspect it's just to make you wait, the advice is to strictly avoid playing the revenge game. Seriously, don't wait 4 hours just because they waited 2. The source points out a pretty harsh truth. Modern people always have their phones on them. If a famous celebrity texted, the reply would probably come in about 3 minutes flat. So if response times are being deliberately dragged out, the strategy calls for recognizing your own self-worth. Understand that a delayed response is simply a sign of low interest. You need to value your time enough to just step back.
Which brings us to the final question the source leaves us with. Are you leading the interaction with boundaries and self-respect, or are you settling for being fan number 133? It really challenges us to rethink how we value our own time behind the screen, how we project value, and how to maintain that crucial mystery without falling into common digital traps. Thanks for exploring this playbook with me on today's Explainer. So I'll leave you with this. Is your next text projecting high value, or are you just giving away free attention?